Welcome to Science and Technology Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: China's largest private developer Country Garden warns of default. More than 2 fungi species yet to be discovered, scientists say. Huawei aims to double smartphone shipments to 70 next year. Israel latest, US sends support as Netanyahu vows heavy response. Why Mohammed El-Arian favors cash over equities for now. China's largest private developer Country Garden warns of default. Financial Times. Country Garden, China's biggest private developer, has warned of a potential default on its international debts, adding to concerns about the country's property sector. The company, which has around $200 billion in liabilities and nearly $10 billion in dollar-denominated debt, said it expects it will not be able to meet all of its offshore payment obligations when they are due. The potential default follows a wave of developer bond defaults and the cash crunch at Evergrande. More than 2 fungi species yet to be discovered, scientists say. The Guardian. More than 2 million species of fungi are waiting to be identified, making them a new frontier of discovery, according to a report from the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew. However, the vast majority of newly discovered plant species are endangered, with 3/4 of undescribed species at risk of extinction, the report warned. Fungi, which are second only to invertebrates in terms of diversity, are found in the air, inside plants and animals, and in the soil and ocean. Over 90% of fungi species remain unknown to science, the report found. Huawei aims to double smartphone shipments to 70 next year. Nikkei Asia. Huawei is stockpiling components for its smartphones in preparation for a further US crackdown. The company aims to double smartphone sales next year and has been building up its inventory of lenses, cameras, and other parts since earlier this year to meet this goal. Huawei has asked Qualcomm, its only US supplier of 4G mobile chips, to ship its full-year order by June for fear that the US will introduce another round of export controls. Huawei has been under American trade restrictions since 2019 but has not given up on its ambitions for chip development. Israel latest, US sends support as Netanyahu vows heavy response. Bloomberg. The conflict between Israel and Hamas has entered its fourth day, with at least 1,500 fatalities. The US has said that security assistance and aid for Israel is on the way, and President Joe Biden has said that at least 11 Americans had died and others were likely being held hostage. Israel has struck the Gaza Strip from the air and the sea, while the top US general has warned Iran to stay out of the fight. Hacking groups, including some tied to Russia, are attacking Israeli government and media websites. Why Mohammed El-Arian favors cash over equities for now. Financial Times. Mohammed El-Arian, chief economic advisor at Allianz, has said that he is uncomfortable investing his personal wealth in the stock market due to central banks battling to tame inflation. He has diversified his investments away from equities and adopted a barbell approach, allocating more of his personal portfolio to low-risk cash and cash equivalents paying decent rates of interest. At the same time, he has increased his exposure to higher-risk distressed debt situations to balance this out. El-Arian said that this approach would not be suitable for novice investors and stressed the importance of resilience, optionality, and agility for investors in the current market environment. Chinese EV startup WM Motors seeks bankruptcy. Bloomberg. Chinese automaker WM Motors has filed for bankruptcy, becoming the latest casualty in China's competitive electric vehicle (EV) market. The startup, founded by former Geely CEO Freeman Shen, struggled to compete with dominant players such as BYD and Geely, selling just 35,647 EVs in 2021. WM Motors was once considered one of China's most promising EV startups, backed by tech giants Baidu and Tencent, but faced financial difficulties and production suspensions leading to the bankruptcy filing. China's EV market has seen a boom-and-bust cycle, with intense competition and a price war leading to shrinking margins for automakers. EU plans anti-subsidy probe into Chinese steelmakers FT. Reuters. The European Union (EU) is reportedly planning to announce anti-subsidy investigations against Chinese steelmakers at a summit with the US later this month. The move comes after Washington asked Brussels to take action against Chinese steel producers in return for avoiding the reimposition of tariffs on EU steel. The EU is also currently investigating whether to impose punitive tariffs on Chinese electric vehicle imports that it claims benefit from state subsidies. China has called for consultations and urged Brussels to safeguard the global supply chain and the strategic partnership between the two. Canadian union Unifor to strike at 3 GM facilities. Reuters. Canadian labor union Unifor has announced strikes at 3 General Motors (GM) facilities in the country after failing to reach a new contract on wages and pensions. The strikes will take place at the Oshawa Assembly Complex, St. Catharines Powertrain Plant, and Woodstock Parts Distribution Center. Unifor represents about 4,300 workers at GM facilities in Canada. The union claims that the strikes are a result of GM's unwillingness to agree to its demands on pensions, support for retirees, and the employment of part-time workers. GM has not yet responded to the announcement. That's all for today's news. Let's recap the highlights. China's largest private developer, Country Garden, has warned of a potential default on its international debts, adding to concerns about the country's property sector. Over 2 million species of fungi are waiting to be identified, according to a report from the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew. However, the vast majority of newly discovered plant species are endangered. Huawei is stockpiling components for its smartphones in preparation for a further US crackdown. The company aims to double smartphone sales next year. The conflict between Israel and Hamas has entered its fourth day, with at least 1,500 fatalities. The U.S. has said that security assistance and aid for Israel is on the way. Mohamed El-Arian, chief economic advisor at Allianz, has said that he is uncomfortable investing in the stock market due to central banks battling inflation. Chinese automaker WM Motors has filed for bankruptcy, becoming the latest casualty in China's competitive electric vehicle market. The European Union is reportedly planning to announce anti-subsidy investigations against Chinese steelmakers at a summit with the US later this month. Canadian labor union Unifor has announced strikes at 3 General Motors facilities in the country after failing to reach a new contract on wages and pensions. Now, let's dive deeper into these stories. China's property sector has been under scrutiny recently, and the potential default by Country Garden is another sign of the challenges facing the industry. This comes after a wave of developer bond defaults and the cash crunch at Evergrande. It highlights the risks associated with high debt levels and the need for developers to carefully manage their liabilities. The report on fungi species highlights the vast biodiversity that still remains to be discovered. Fungi are incredibly diverse and play important roles in ecosystems. However, the report also warns that many newly discovered species are endangered, emphasizing the need for conservation efforts to protect these unique organisms. Huawei's aim to double smartphone shipments next year shows the company's determination to overcome the challenges posed by US trade restrictions. By stockpiling components, Huawei is preparing for potential disruptions to its supply chain. This demonstrates the company's resilience and commitment to its smartphone business. The conflict between Israel and Hamas continues to escalate, with significant casualties on both sides. The US has pledged support to Israel, while also warning Iran to stay out of the fight. The involvement of hacking groups adds another layer of complexity to the situation, highlighting the potential for cyber warfare in modern conflicts. Mohamed El-Arian's cautious approach to investing reflects the current market environment. With central banks battling inflation, there is increased uncertainty in the stock market. His emphasis on resilience, optionality, and agility serves as a reminder for investors to carefully consider their investment strategies. The bankruptcy of WM Motors highlights the intense competition in China's EV market. Despite being backed by tech giants Baidu and Tencent, the startup struggled to compete with established players. This serves as a reminder that the EV market is highly competitive, and success is not guaranteed even with significant financial backing. The EU's plan to investigate Chinese steelmakers for anti-subsidy practices comes in response to pressure from the US. This adds to the growing tensions between China and Western countries over trade issues. It remains to be seen how these investigations will impact the global steel industry and the broader trade relationship between China and the EU. Finally, the strikes at GM facilities in Canada highlight the ongoing labor disputes in the automotive industry. Unifor's demands for better wages, pensions, and support for retirees reflect the challenges faced by workers in an industry undergoing significant changes. This strike will likely have an impact on GM's operations and could potentially lead to disruptions in the supply chain. That's all for today's news analysis. Remember, investing in the stock market may be a roller coaster ride, but at least you won't have to worry about bankruptcy like WM Motors. Now, over to you. What are your thoughts on these stories? Any questions for me? Let's hear what you have to say. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.